Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of An Anthropologist Plays. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at a board game that I really like. It's called Stone Age, and it's by Seaman Games. It's for 2 to 4 players from ages 13 and up, and it's about, you can finish it in about an hour, maybe a little bit longer if you make the game last longer. There's like some options to make the game last longer, but yeah, let's look at this. I really like the design. This game is beautiful. I'm gonna show you inside. The board is beautiful, but it's really cool. I think this is the beginning of the Neolithic, you have villages being built, and you have agriculture in the game. So it's definitely the end of the Mesolithic and the beginning of the Neolithic. So let's take a look at that. So let's look at the board first. I love the detail of this board. It has farming. It has people doing farming here, and there's a house. They're getting milk from goats to make cheese. There's a hut where 2 people are meeting. There's a group of people gathering wood for the fire. There's people cutting stone tools, making tools out of flint. Over here, you have people hunting. You have people gathering wood, gathering clay for bricks. You have people gathering stone in the mountains, mining. You have people gathering gold from the river. And finally, you have the art on the civilization cards. So the way you play the game is you have to get the most victory points to win. It's a Euro-style game with worker placement mechanics. So you start the game with 5 workers, and it's not very clear if you're competing tribes in the same region and you're trying to get the most resources out of the region, or if you're different factions within the same tribe. But you have this personal board that tells you what each of the resources cost and what each of the resources is worth. And then you have this little gathering place for your villagers. You also have the points that you get depending on the cards that you have. I'll explain that later. And here's where you put your houses, and here's where you put your tools. So the way you play the game is you start with five workers, and you'll set them in individual places. So you'll set them there, and in that hut you gather agricultural points. You can set them here, and in that hut you create a new villager. You can set them here, and that villager will work on tools to gather tools for you. These tools can be used later when you're rolling to better your odds. And you can also set a villager to gather food, to gather wood, to gather clay, to gather stone, to gather gold, or to go to the fishing village, which looks like this. Go to the trade spot and gather one of the civilization cards. So the way you play the game is you have a cup with dice, and you're going to roll 1 die for each character that you have. So let's say that you had 3 on wood. You would roll 3 dice, and whatever came out, you divide it by the cost of wood. So let's say that I got a 15. You divide by 3, that gives you 5. You'd gather 5 pieces of wood, and then you have those resources to build later on in the game. In this hut, you gain agricultural points, so you move the agricultural token up by 1. That means that at the end of the turn, in the feeding phase, you're going to have to feed 1 less of your population, because you will have agriculture that sustains your food needs. If you don't have that, then you have to go hunting, and you roll the dice again. For as many people as you have hunting, you roll the dice, and depending on when you get, I got a 7 there. 7 divided by 2, you round down, so that's 6 divided by 2, so that's 3 food. So I gathered 3 food. So I've gathered some mushrooms and some berries. So the food tokens are interesting. You have 10 with like fur, and it looks like bison or mammoth or bear fur, so that's really interesting. Then you have 5, which is fish. Then you have 2, which is mushrooms. And then you have 1, which is wild berries, wild edibles. So that's a really interesting like touch in the art of the game. So the game is played in phases. First, you set out your villagers, and then everybody will do that. All the players will set out their villagers, and then you will recall them back. So you will bring back your agricultural villager, you'll bring back your villagers that created another villager, you'll bring back your tools villager. And it's important that there's some strategy on when you bring back a villager, because, for example, if you bring back the tool villager first, now you have a tool that you can use to gather food. So the way the tools work is you roll 3 dice you roll a die for each villager that's in the area gathering resources. So let's say you roll us a 12, but with the tool, you can turn it and you can gather 1 extra. So let's say you had rolled an 11, and that doesn't give you enough for a 6. If you turn this and you roll you get a 12, so now you have 12 divided by 2, which is 6 food. So you get some fish and you get some berries. So that's how you use tools. So after you gather back your villagers, they will come back, and then you will have to feed your villagers. So depending how many you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 5, and 4 is 9. So you feed your villagers and everybody's happy. Now remember, you don't have to use one of your food resources, your food tokens, if you have agriculture. So the more agriculture you have, up to 10, you won't have to go hunting anymore, because you're depending on that agriculture for your sustenance, for your survival. So after you've gathered some resources, you can set out your villager to construct one of these houses. And these houses give you victory points. This is one of the ways that you win the game, is by building these houses, these huts. So the houses are built by using the resources that they show on the bottom. So 2 wood and 1 brick would build me a house for 10 points. There's also a house that's worth 13 points that is worth 1 wood and 2 brick. And if you notice, each stone is 5 and a wood is 3. So the worth of the resources, 10 and 3, is the worth of the house, 13. There's also houses that let you build as many resources, 1 to 7, and the price, the value of the house, the points that it's worth, is based on the resource that you use. So if you use 5 wood, you would multiply 5 times 3, and that house is worth 15 points. But if you use gold to build a house, then the house will be worth 6 times however many gold you use to build it. So the houses can become really powerful, especially in the late game when you gather enough resources with enough people, and that's how you win the game. That's how you get points. You can also have houses that require 3 individual resources, 3 different resources, and you have to have 4 of 3 different resources. So you could do stone, brick, and wood, but you would need 4 resources. So that could be your house. And the worth of the house is based on the worth of your resources. So that will be 5 plus 4, 9, plus 6, 15. Another interesting aspect of the game that brings a lot of replayability, variability to the game is the civilization cards. The civilization cards, you put one of your workers on the civilization card and you pay the resource that it says. So you will pay 1 wood, and that will get you the resource card. So once you get the card, it will give you something on the top. So it will give you gold, a resource. It will give you tools, a one-time use tool. It will give you something that you can roll for, and these are really good because it can give you agriculture, a tool, or a resource, or it will give you an agricultural point. At the end of the game, the cards are also worth points because you have sets, you have series of different cards. You have the tablet plus the loom plus the cart, and the more different ones you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you go here, and those are the points that it gives you at the end of the game. So that's another way to win the game. You don't necessarily have to win by building houses. You can win by trading, which is really interesting. At the end of the game, there's also some multiply cards. So this one's right here, they multiply 2 times the number of tools you have, or 1 times the number of agriculture you have, or 1 times the number of population you have. So there's different ways to win at the game, to gain points at the end of the game. So that's a very brief overview of how the game is played. You will go around and place your workers, and then you will recall them, and then you're slowly gaining points until one of these stacks of houses runs out. And once that stack runs out, the game is over. You count your points, and whoever has the most points wins the game. I also love the art on the back of these cards, the back of the civilization cards. It has like stone art. It has pictographs of like the trading on the canoe with the animals, and it has also art on the back of the huts, on the back of the buildings. And these are like cave paintings, so they're really, really cool. I really like those. That's a really nice touch. So yeah, all in all, the game is really interesting. It has a really good atmosphere. I really like this game because it has some really interesting concepts. For example, the resources that you get, there are different values based on them. So it's easier or harder to get each of these resources based on the amount of dice, based on the value that you have to roll. So to get stone, you have to roll a 5 or better. But to get wood, you have to roll a 2 or better. So it's easier to go hunting than to gather stone with the tools that you have. And I don't know necessarily how accurate that is. I think it's more for game balance. But, you know, it's interesting. We've been hunter-gatherers for a longer time. So woodworking and hunting and gathering, you know, they would be activities that prehistoric humans would have been like used to for a longer period of time than, say, for example, collecting stone. Now, gathering clay and gathering gold, that, you know, they did it for game balance, but it doesn't necessarily equate. The gold is worth as much as it's worth because gold doesn't devalue, it doesn't corrode over time, so it has a value in it that it remains stable. So through the ages, humans have valued gold very highly because of its ability to remain, you know, shiny and not corrode and not decrease in value. So it's a standard that you can like place. But a stone is also like that. It doesn't change in value. It's just humans like shiny things. The clay is interesting because gathering clay wouldn't necessarily seem like that hard of a activity, but you know, it's a 4. But I really like the use of the tools. I like that the tools, when you have enough of them, they make gathering resources easier than doing it with your bare hands. Obviously, that's very realistic. I like that agriculture, the more you increase your agriculture, you have to rely less and less on migratory game and hunting animals. So that's really interesting. Obviously, it would have been interesting. It would have been too complicated for the game, but it would have been interesting to see maybe like a bad harvest or like your agriculture take a hit. That would have been interesting. I also find really interesting the trading cards. The fact that you're trading with other villagers. So let me show you this part. So this is really cool. These people from another village are coming and they're trading with your village. So they're you know, trading wood for gold, or they're trading agriculture or knowledge. That's another cool thing about the game. You know, like you're not just trading the raw resources or the tools, you're actually trading knowledge about agriculture or knowledge about how to make tools as well. So that's a really interesting concept. I really like that. Unfortunately, the game is out of stock on Cool Stuff Inc. So you would have to try to find it on your local board game store. But that might be a long shot. You might not be able to find it. But if you go to a gaming cafe, they might definitely have it. So I suggest you give it a chance. It's a really interesting game. And it's very cool because of the aspects of prehistory that it has in it. It's really interesting. So I thought it'd be interesting to try to date when the game is set, when it takes place. And we have some like telling marks, like for example, agriculture, like wheat and millet, and the domestication of cattle. So like that brings it to about 8,000 BC, from 8,000 to about 5,000 BC. But then you have like other issues, like for example, gold. There's evidence of use of gold from like much earlier, but like the first instance of like gold being worked by humans that we have is from like Egypt from 3000 BCE. So, and like goats, for example, they were domesticated around 8000 to 9000 BCE. So I would say in total, the game probably dates from 8000 to about 5000 BCE, but no later than 3000 BCE, because that would be the beginning of the Copper Age or the Chalcolithic. So thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, leave a comment and like it. And if you like this kind of content, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.